Jay, you said that you went over to Beijing. What was the reason why you went over to Beijing?
Yeah, I for several years I led a group of teachers into China, different parts of China, Beijing, Shanghai, um, just to run English camps for the college students that were majoring in English. So they wanted like authentic, I guess, whatever, English speakers, like fluent English speakers, so that the students could practice. So they were always wanting teachers to come over there and hang out with the college students while they took us around on tours, different parts of the country. So basically, they were like a tour guide for like 4 or 5 days. It was two of them were assigned to each person. And then what we had to do was, when it was like all done, you kind of graded them a little bit, and we would tell the professor, I was like, oh, they were great, they were this, they were that, I understood everything they said. And then at the end, they had like a big, it's kind of funny, it was in Xi'an, the college in Xi'an. They had like this big assembly, like, hey, come meet the fat Americans, it's like, come on and meet the big Americans. And we'd all sit in the assembly, and they set up a microphone for them to ask questions. The first year I did that, because I had a lot of experience getting people from, traveling overseas. I was the guy that they put up on the stage, and there was like 1,000 students there, and they had a microphone on the down, on the floor. And
Hmm.
so they would ask us questions, and the other teachers were like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, no problem. So it was just me. I'm sitting on a stool with a microphone, and I'm thinking 30 minutes will be done. Man, it's like 4 hours later. Like they were like, okay, you could ask a question, and they were so polite. They lined up in a long line, and I'm going, oh man, it's gonna, like, what in the world are they gonna ask me? It's so funny because a lot of them asked questions about guns. Like, that was like a big thing,
Wow.
because in that country, it's illegal. You can't have guns or knives or anything like that. So they asked a lot about, like it was just so funny. They're like, have you ever been shot? I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, thank you. And it's like, have you ever shot another person? I'm like, no, I haven't. Okay, thank you. I'm like, what kind of questions are these? They were just asking like a lot. They're like, have you ever met the president? I was like, I haven't. They're like, oh, okay, you haven't met the president. But it was simple questions like that, but they had, and it just went on and on. And some of them were really funny. They were just like, why are Americans so big? And I'm like, oh, we eat a lot of cheese. There's no cheese over there in China. I can't find cheese anywhere in
Yeah.
China. So it was funny. And so I got to do that 6 times. And after you do it once or twice, it's like, all right, I'm ready. Get me a glass of water, get your questions ready. But it was a great time that I was able, to see that country, other than through the eyes of the media,
Hmm.
before all the craziness that came out of it. It was the last time I was there was a year before the Wuhan stuff. So I was in Shanghai, and it's all changed now. So, it's all changed now. But it was a cool time. It was a cool time.
That's cool. Like a- as a Chinese person, I've never once ever gone to China.
I
Oh,
know. It's
really?
like, you never
Oh,
been.
okay.
And I'm like
Yeah.
speaking Chinese to Phil. I was like, "Ni hao ma," and he's just like, yeah, I kind of know that," but it's like,
I've never been. But yeah, but yeah, like it's funny. It's because like prior to us going live, Jay was asking me. He's like, "You never been to China?" I'm like, "No." It's like, what? What? So it's just like hearing like, "Oh, you're from China. Like your parents are from China, and like you've never been." And I've always get questions like for me, I've actually never really used chopsticks until I was like probably teenagers. My mom forced me to do it, and he's like, as a Chinese person, you need to learn how to do it. And she sat me down on a table and told me how, like, she gave me like an etiquette training, like how to eat properly, how to sit properly, how to use chopsticks. And then I'm like, I'm not gonna do that, right? And then she would yell at me. But like, speaking of that, there's one time I was when I was interning at Cartoon Network, and
You hear that, chat? Interning at Cartoon Network. Woo!
so when I was in, I think this is back in 2013 when I was interning there, and I was on Ben 10, so it was like I think Ben 10 Omniverse, which is the last one, and me and my producers and my production assistant, we all went out to go eat pho. So pho, if you guys don't know what it is, it's like a Vietnamese noodle place. It's like Vietnamese ramen equivalent, basically. And we went, and my manager was white, and my manager is white, and then the production assistant is Hispanic. And then we went, and then they're like, "Hey Phil, can you grab me a chopstick?" And then I was like, I was like, "Jesus, do you want chopsticks or fork?" He's like, "Chopsticks." And then I grabbed the fork, and they all broke it, and they looked at me. He's like, "What kind of Asian are you? Why are you using a fork and not chopsticks?" So they're just both gave me the stink eye the entire time, and I was like, okay. So I just grabbed the chopstick and I started using it. But it there's some like random stories like these is
Well,
pretty
the
it's pretty
worst
funny.
is like some of the things they didn't prep me when you first go over there. So it's like where we stayed, everywhere we went, because like there was like it was like one college that was kind of connected in all these cities, and then we'd get on the bullet train and head to the other city and do the same thing. We were over there for like 2 weeks at a time,
Mhm.
like 3 or 4 days with a different college when you go to the next one. But while we were staying in the hotels, they had like American toilets, right? It was like West, they call
Yeah.
it Western style.
Yeah.
So they always put us in a hotel that was like Western. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Had breakfast there, all that stuff. So then we would go out to the museums or anything like that. And it's like, all right, I gotta use the restroom. And uh it's like that, right? There's a hole in the floor. And I'm just like, thank God, like, it's like you handle your main business in the other toilet, but it's like I'm sitting here like you miss, like you're gonna get it all over. And so and some of the wild stuff is some of the bathrooms in the men. I can't speak for the women's, but for the men's, it was like they had no privacy walls. It was just like, and they just people just walked up and did their thing, and
Mhm.
nobody like looked, and then they whatever. So I was like, I walked in, it's like, uh, okay. And I'm looking around and everyone's just like doing all their stuff, like out in the open. I'm like, well, all right. Like when in Rome, oh my God, look who's in the chat. It's Krista Nova
Yeah,
is
Krista
here.
Yeah.
Nova.
Holy cow. Look at that.
Hey Krista, how's it going?
Hello.
They're big fans of yours, Krista. But yeah, it was like, so you got to like learn how, you got to know how to target, and like make sure you use the restroom, because it's like, there ain't no toilets or like privacy or anything like that. So it was it was that was a learning experience. I felt bad
Mhm.
for some of the other like the other Americans that kind of came. Every now and then some of them had like some culture shock, because it was just like the time is so different. So it's like it's almost like if you were Eastern time and you were in Beijing, it was like noon here was midnight there. So it was
Mhm.
almost a full 13-hour difference. So, and then you're trying to like maneuver when it's like 3 o'clock there, your body feels like it's 3 a.m., and like I could see them all like getting around 4. And it's like trying to make sure it's like, hey, stay awake. You got to try, because if you keep sleeping like at 1 for 8 hours, then waking up, 4 a.m. China time, it's like your
Mhm.
whole trip is gonna get wrecked. So it was like we were just trying to do things to keep people awake, but the bathrooms were like kind of shocking. But I will say
Yeah.
this is my favorite story from China, and then I'll be done with 75 people watching. It's freaking amazing. Kristen Nova in the
Holy
chat,
crap.
even awesome.
Yeah.
We
That's
were went to
wild,
this
yo.
we went to this place called Hot Pot. Do you guys have that in the Philippines, like hot pot?
Yep,
So
for
like,
sure.
and so if you don't know what that is, you walk in and you sit down, and everybody has their own little burner, and you order a bunch of raw food, and then you kind of cook it yourself. So you just kind of like cook it yourself. And we were there having hot pot. It was like one of the last days I was there, and there was like 6 Chinamen sitting across from us, and they were like loud and laughing and having a great time. And as soon as we sat down, like one of them was like, "Oh, Americans!" And the first thing he said was, "Y'all think you can drink? Like we can outdrink any American. We can outdrink any." And like the average Chinaman, like in Xi'an, is like 5'3", you know, like
Yeah,
110
that's
pounds.
all.
Like they're really small compared to me. I'm 6'4", you know, like 270. So I'm big, I'm tall and everything. And so he was just like, Americans, we cannot. But he wasn't being rude. He was like laughing, and he came over and he put his hand on me. He's like, you can't outdrink Chinese people. Chinese people drink more than Americans. And I'm like, all right, it's time to defend our country, America, right? So me and my other friend Peter, he was with me, and I was like, we got to do this for America. We got to do this. And I'm like, we're drinking for America. You drink for China. And they were like, yeah. And the store owner came by, and the store owner was like, America versus China. It was, dude, it was why I loved it. These people were so nice, man. And so the first round, they brought out these 40s of the Chinese beer. Now the difference is the Chinese beer is not made with hops. It's like a rice base, right?
Mhm.
So it's like a rice base. So for us Americans, the rice based beer is like water.
Yeah.
So like I'm just like, we're going, everyone's fine. There were 6 of them, and we're all laughing. They all spoke English, like kind of broken, but we're all just laughing. Everyone's having a good time. They're asking questions, and we're one at another, right? And it's and just for a record, so people don't know, like the in China, like the food is really cheap. So it's like the
Yes.
hot pocket was like $2 American, and the beer is like $1 for like a 40 ounce. It's just really, it's not expensive at all. So we're just drinking, we're drinking, and one by one, they're like, America wins. America. It came down, and my friend Pete, he bowed out too, you know, and there's just like all these bottles. And I felt like Indiana Jones, or like what in the, because it came down to like me and these 2 other guys, and I'm feeling fine. You know, it's like I don't even feel it. And we get to like the last one, we bring out the one last one, and they're like, we love America. No more for China. We love
That's
America. I was like, yes, I did
yes.
my duty. I did
Let's
my
go.
duty. Like America, but they were so incredibly grateful. And we just had a great time when we were done. And I picked up a lot of their drinking tab because I had the money. It wasn't expensive.
Mhm.
And we just had a great time that last day. And I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. And it just goes to prove, like, with all these crazy people that we see on Twitter and stuff, just like throwing so much hate and division and racial tension and hate and all this stuff, it's like, man, if we all just sat down and like had a drink and laughed together, the world would be just such a wonderful, happy place. You know, even people that
Yeah.
don't drink, you can have water. You know,
Yeah,
it's that
yeah,
it would be such a happy place, because I'll just never forget that. Like, we were strangers. They sat down. They were having a great time. They welcomed us, you know, and they wanted to have a competition, and they weren't being rude. They were just being like
Mhm.
friendly. And it just was a cool time. You know, it was a cool time. And it's like it would be cool to get back to, and I think a lot of us are in some ways, but you know, like the meetup in Vegas with the F&T is going to be like that. People are going to be just laughing and hanging out, and just you know, it's like people are just so angry nowadays about everything. And it's like the life is so short and precious. It's like, let's not just be angry all the time. Let's just sit down and have a drink. And that's like, because I remember we had talked about that before, like when Gina Carano was fired
Mhm.
from Disney, she talked about this, like, people from Lucasfilm wanted her to apologize to like 40 people, because I guess their feelings were hurt by her Twitter. Wow. And they wanted her to do it via Skype, and
Mhm.
she was like, I will pay for all of them. Like, I will meet them. I will take every one of them out to dinner. I will buy drinks. She goes, this is how I've always done it. I will
Mhm.
apologize to their face. I won't do this and that. And they said no. And it hurt her. Like, why would you say no to something like that? And it's like, this is just what we're fighting. Like, this ridiculous uh weirdos, man, that
Mhm.
are just angry all the time at anything that we say or do. you
mhm.
know you
Yeah.
could be canceled for wearing that hat. You could be canceled from
Yeah.
being in the Philippines. How dare you wear an orange shirt? I'm offended. Take it off. It's like, it's just like they're just so angry all the time. And it's like, man, they just need to get
Yeah.
out and live life. So
Yep.
it's just
Yeah,
wild. I
man.
know that story
It
took a long time. Sorry, chat, but
no,
it's
that's
pretty
a
cool. Pretty cool.
it's an amazing story. But
Yeah.
it's wild. Like I remember I was responding to someone in one of our videos, and they're just like extremely upset. Like they said that like we didn't understand what we were talking about because we're only reading things on surface level. And I'm just like, in return,
Yeah.
I'm just like, look, I think there's too much hate in the world. I think people just need to find an understanding, and it's just like I think just people just need to just stop being so angry all the time. I think that's one thing, and like people are just don't know each other, and they don't
Yeah.
understand what people are going through, and just what it's an echo chamber of what they see on Twitter, especially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's,
For sure.
I think like if they were to meet people like face to face, it would be completely different. I think people are just like trapped behind their keyboard, just typing away, not
Yeah.
having a care in the world.
Yes. Agreed.
Thanks for checking out this segment of the Project Eggroll podcast. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will know next time when we go live. We do go live every Saturday at 8 p.m. Once again, we are just getting started. Tons of more video to come. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.